Next on Currents News, take a look at this video. A man sucker punching a parishioner outside St. Michael's Church in Flushing, Queens. And there's also been a break-in. We'll have the latest. Then the horrifying experience of the children who survived the massacre of 9 Americans in Mexico. And we have exclusive coverage of the first American bishops arriving in Rome to meet the Pope. They're from Boston.
They've already started addressing the sexual abuse crisis. I'm Melissa Budd, standing by at the Vatican with more.
A major shakeup in a Brooklyn neighborhood. 2 Catholic academies are merging. I'm Emily Drewby, and that is ahead.
Plus, New York's Veterans Day Parade will be led by the Commander-in-Chief. And the Tablet newspaper has special coverage of our local American heroes. That all starts right now. Good evening, I'm Tamara Lane. We begin tonight with a troubling story of violence at a Queens church. A woman was sucker punched by a man after he was kicked out of St. Michael's Church in Flushing for disrupting Mass. Father John Vesey is the pastor of the church. He met with the woman moments after she was attacked.
Dora, about 50, came into church crying and shaking and said that she had just been hit by a man as she was leaving church. I can tell you that in August she was operated on for her spine. She had a neck brace on the day when she was hit. And so obviously it was a tremendous crisis for her personally. They took her to the hospital. We brought her over to the rectory, and about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the ambulance took her to the hospital, and she was there until 1:30 the next morning.
Father Vesey says the suspect had been seen at the parish before. Recently, when the church's homeless kitchen was helping the needy, the suspect accosted the woman who ran the program before being asked to leave. To make matters worse, Father Vesey reports that last night 2 men broke into a shed near the church and stole about $1,000 worth of tools. Father believes the perpetrators were from the neighborhood.
These 2 young men were well dressed. They came with lanterns. They came with bags to carry their things, and I mean, it just seemed to be well planned, and they knew what they were doing. So it had to be somebody from our neighborhood.
The cops need help to track down the brute who punched the woman parishioner and the young men who broke in last night. They're asking anyone with information to call Crime Stoppers at 800-577-TIPS. Turning to the big story still breaking in Mexico, the slaughter of 9 American women and children. Several children are being treated in Arizona after surviving the violence, while other relatives are struggling to cope with what has happened. Nadia Romero reports the latest from Tucson.
For the family members of the 9 women and children killed on Monday,
We're still looking for answers and praying for answers.
It's a struggle to understand why they were attacked. Criminal groups ambushed a 3-car convoy traveling between Sonora and Chihuahua, Mexico. Officials are working to piece together exactly what happened. Mexican authorities say a suspect who was arrested on Tuesday was not involved in the massacre. No other arrests have been made.
That's a level of barbaric behavior that is so off the charts. I don't even know where the world could ever tolerate or how someone could possibly be so sick.
The victims are dual U.S.-Mexican citizens from a Mormon community in Mexico. Survivors from the attack told family members that bullets rained down from surrounding hills as several of the young children under attack did whatever they could to survive.
What they went through, what they experienced, we don't have the capacity just to imagine what these children went through.
What few details are known. The weapons used were .223 Remington rifles, U.S.-made guns. Over 200 bullets were found at the scene, and local cartels are the focus on the investigation. Mexico's president has formed a commission to investigate the murders, and President Trump has offered to assist in the investigation. For now, all the family can do is wait and mourn those they lost.
There's not words in the English language that can describe the emotions of what it feels like to see it and live through it.
In Tucson, Nadia Romero, Currents News.
As we just heard, hundreds of rifle shots rained down on the Americans from the hills surrounding their convoy. Leif Langford had more to say about what the surviving kids did once the onslaught ended and the shooters came down to them.
They basically told them to get out of here. So they immediately started walking towards home and taking turns. These precious children were taking turns carrying their brother Cody, and they were just, I mean, they had gun wounds, bullets, just on all parts of their bodies.
When they couldn't go any further, 13-year-old Devin Blake took over. He hid his siblings in the bushes and walked 6 hours to find help. 5 of the kids who survived are in a Tucson, Arizona hospital tonight. They're all recovering from their wounds and are listed in stable condition. One of the children who was shot in the jaw will need extensive plastic surgery. The family of the kids expect they'll be transported from Tucson to a medical facility in Phoenix. One Mexican official is saying that October was the most violent month in modern Mexican history. He added that the level of drug cartel attacks is rising across the country with no end in sight. Since 2006, it's estimated that 150,000 people have lost their lives to organized crime violence in Mexico. New York City's constitution is going to change thanks to Election Day. There will be a new way to vote starting in 2021. New Yorkers can rank their candidate choices in order of preference. There are also tougher rules on police oversight and a longer lobbying ban for former city officials. Melinda Katz was elected Queens District Attorney, and Jumaane Williams is keeping his job as public advocate. Nationally, election watchers are sifting through results from several states. They're looking for clues about what could happen next November when the White House is up for grabs. Karen Kafa reports.
Democrat Andy Beshear declaring the Kentucky governor's race against Republican incumbent Matt Bevin over.
I'm done with running for office. It's now time to govern.
And claiming a victory cheered by Democrats across the country. Bevin has not conceded and has asked for a recanvass of the vote. The tight race in a state President Trump won by 30 points in 2016 could signal trouble for Republicans next November, even if they seem unruffled now.
We're not concerned at all. You know, some of those governor's races are very specific, very parochial.
Trump had made an election eve appearance in Lexington with Bevin. Downplaying Tuesday night's outcome, his 2020 campaign in a statement credited Trump with helping Bevin run stronger. The president was on the winning side of the governor's race in Mississippi, where he and Vice President Pence visited on behalf of Republican Tate Reeves. But in Virginia, Democrats worked a strong ground game to turn the purple state blue.
And this is an exciting day for the Commonwealth of Virginia. After 26 years, we are officially blue.
And attributing their success to suburban voters who will be crucial to the 2020 presidential contest. Democrats flipped both chambers of Virginia's legislature, emphasizing gun control and Medicaid expansions under the existing Affordable Care Act, which Republicans have sought to limit in Virginia and elsewhere. In Washington, Karen Kafa, Currents News.
Turning to the impeachment battle on Capitol Hill, public hearings will begin next week. 3 officials from the State Department will appear, including the former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine. Today, David Hale from the State Department was questioned behind closed doors. President Trump had appointed the career diplomat to a political post. Hale was expected to talk about the politics surrounding the military aid deal with Ukraine. America's bishops are headed to the Vatican for a special meeting with the Pope about the Church in America. The clerics will also sit down with other Vatican officials to update them on what's happening in the United States. The New York delegation arrives next week and will include Buffalo's Bishop Richard Malone. Last month, the Vatican appointed Bishop DiMarzio to lead a visitation to the Buffalo Diocese. He is completing a report which will be sent to the Holy See. Several U.S. bishops are already in Rome. Clerics from the Boston Archdiocese and other parts of New England are meeting at the Vatican about many things, including the protection of young and vulnerable people from abuse. Melissa Butts reports.
Boston, Massachusetts was the focus of the abuse crisis in 2002, when 5 priests from the Archdiocese alone were sent to prison. When further clerical abuse was made public in 2018 in the United States, addressing the problem narrowed down to eliminating it, with more rigorous restrictions on who could enter seminary. It's a topic Massachusetts native and current Bishop of Portland, Maine says is being discussed during the bishops' meeting at the Vatican.
We talked this morning, we were at the Congregation for Clergy, and we talked about seminary formation. In the United States, the American bishops are working on applying the Ratio Fundamentalis, which is the rule of the seminary, that the Holy See produces, to our situation in the United States, and we'll have a discussion about that at our our plenary session this fall.
The Ratio Fundamentalis establishes general norms with a pastoral objective for seminary training. It forms the inner man, focusing on the heart, which influences behavior.
I think that we have to be very careful that the people we accept in the seminary are healthy psychologically, spiritually, and in terms of human development, that they are able to relate to others, they are able to communicate with others, they're able to appreciate the gift that others are to us, and they're able to be educated.
Bishop Deely said for him and his brother bishops, they're also supporting seminarians by increasing lay involvement. In this way, some of the major burdens, along with priesthood, can be met calmly and with assistance. Tomorrow morning, the nearly 20 bishops will be meeting with Pope Francis for around 2.5 hours. It will be a discussion-based meeting in which surely the idea and topic of sexual abuse crisis in the United States will be discussed. At the Vatican, Melissa Butts, Currents News.
More Currents News exclusive reports are headed your way.
Arts and engineering, that's the focus of a whole new model of Catholic education planned for when two Catholic academies in Bay Ridge merge. I'm Emily Druby, and that is ahead.
Honoring Mother Cabrini as a hero of New York, two leaders working on the project are with us in moments. And the war is not over for America's heroes, our veterans. Tablet editor-in-chief Jorge Dominguez previews the paper's special coverage. The Brooklyn Diocese is creating a new model for Catholic education in Bay Ridge. The new academy will come from the merger of two other schools. The result is a Catholic education that will prepare students to excel in the modern economy. Currents News' Emily Druby reports.
Because in those days we had 1A and 1B.
Monsignor Kevin Noon once walked these halls. He was a student at Holy Angels Catholic Academy.
She taught me right here.
It's the place he learned, grew, and first heard God's calling. Now he's the parish pastor, charged with helping merge with the school down the block, St. Anselm Catholic Academy.
And if this is a sacrifice that has to be made, leaving this building so that a Catholic school can grow 9 blocks away, I'm in support of that.
It's a move school officials call necessary. Over the past 3 years, enrollment has dropped below 200 students at Holy Angels. St. Anselm's numbers have been steadily growing over the past few years, but there's still too many empty seats to survive alone. Michael Long is the board chair at Holy Angels. He says the merger is coming at the right time.
But before it becomes a crisis and we're forced to close the schools, we thought it'd be best to try to, but to merge, put the two schools together and create one great new, bold, educational institution.
Long is talking about Bay Ridge Catholic Academy's plan to create a new, bold curriculum.
We are going to make a heavy focus on engineering. We're going to incorporate the arts. We're going to develop an urban garden.
The school will place heavy emphasis on STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, teaching students the skills they need to succeed in the 21st century workforce.
We need to prepare them for the future. They need to be more analytical. They need to be bigger, better problem solvers.
The new school will be at the current St. Anselm building, but while the merger is exciting in many ways, it's also a major change.
I have one kid in 4th, the other one's in 7th, so that's also upsetting because next year is his last year.
They're asking for parent input as they move forward with the plan. The school will open in September 2020.
All right, come to the front.
Keeping faith in the neighborhood and in the classroom. In Bay Ridge, Emily Druby, Currents News.
President Donald Trump will be the first commander-in-chief ever to lead New York City's Veterans Day Parade. Trump will speak at Monday's opening ceremony and lay a wreath at the Eternal Light Memorial in Madison Square Park. Trump has been a longtime supporter of the parade, raising money for the struggling event years ago. More than 25,000 people are expected to show up to support our vets. When City Hall turned its back on Mother Cabrini and refused to honor her with a new statue, the Bishop of Brooklyn took charge. Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio led a march of more than 1,000 people through the streets of Carroll Gardens to push back against the snub of the saint. And on Columbus Day, he rode up Fifth Avenue on a Diocese of Brooklyn float with Mother Cabrini as the centerpiece. Then Governor Andrew Cuomo named the bishop to a new commission that's going to bring a Cabrini memorial to life. There are 18 other top names on that panel, and 2 of them join us now. John Heyer is the lay coordinator of the Diocese of Brooklyn Italian Apostolate, and Angelo Vivolo is the president of the Columbus Heritage Coalition. Thank you so much for being with us.
Pleasure to be here.
We need an update. What progress is the commission making in recognizing Mother Cabrini? Angelo, let's start with you.
Well, we had an initial meeting with the governor, Bishop DiMarzio, and myself several weeks ago, and we discussed who we wanted on the commission and who the governor wanted on the commission, and we discussed that at length, and then the commission was finally formulated, and we were given the charge of deciding design, also who would do the sculpture of the statue and where it would be placed.
Well, so I want to look at this. The governor is also pledging up to $750,000 for a new statue for the Italian-American patroness of immigrants. What will those funds be used for?
We're talking material, what's used to make the statue, make sure it's durable, make sure that it's maintained, make sure that it's created by someone of a certain stature. And the $750,000 may not do the whole job either, which is why we're continuously, thinking about if we may have to continue our fundraising efforts.
Well, how important has Bishop DiMarzio's leadership been in the success of the Cabrini campaign? John?
Oh, I would say for sure it's been outstanding. The bishop from the very beginning of hearing of it was himself disappointed, as many others were. But that's not what brought us to this point. What brought us to this point was the fact that then parishioners, people from the Diocese of Brooklyn, started reaching out, members of the Italian Apostolate, members of parishes that have, as Angelo said, no affiliation with the Italian population, reached out, and Bishop heard the cry of the people, and was able to, with the Italian Apostolate, with other members of the priests in the Diocese of Brooklyn and the laity, come together and say, well, we need to do something, which is what led us to honoring Mother Cabrini for the Italian Apostolate Day this year, is because he heard the cry of the people and he wanted to honor Cabrini. And doing that, and then also wanting to recognize her and make sure that she was at the forefront of the float for the Diocese of Brooklyn in the Columbus Day Parade, he was putting out there not a reaction to what happened, but he was instead trying to listen and fulfill the needs or the desire of the people to recognize Cabrini, which I think is real leadership.
Well, and Angela, you mentioned her importance to the city, not only to the Catholics, but to everybody, poor and disenfranchised. What does she mean to you personally?
Well, to me, she means hope, she means caring, compassion. She did it for all ethnicities and all religions. And so someone who has represented that so well should be honored and should be recognized for the contributions.
And John, what about you?
For me, as an Italian American, right, speaking from that perspective, one of the desires I have is that when people look at my children or myself and know that we're Italian American, that the first image that they see in their mind is not Tony Soprano. But instead, I wish and pray that they would see Mother Cabrini, an Italian immigrant woman who came to this country to help everyone, who became a citizen herself and worked, for the gospel mission, and no matter who she was working with. That's what I wish everyone would see when they look at Mother Cabrini and they think of the Italian-American person.
I'm sure there's much more to come. Yes. John Heyer, the lay coordinator of the Diocese of Brooklyn Italian Apostolate, and Angela Vivolo, the president of the Columbus Heritage Coalition. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Still to come on Currents News. America's bishops are saying it's time to civilize our politics. The story, an exclusive in the tablet. And editor-in-chief Jorge Dominguez is up next. It's being called a sign from heaven, the discovery of a precious jewel in the rubble of the wildfires. This week's issue of the Tablet is filled with stories Catholics need to read. From the health issues facing war veterans to the U.S. bishops calling for political elections to become more civilized. The Tablet's editor-in-chief, Jorge Dominguez, is here to give us a preview of this week's must-read paper. Jorge, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Tamara.
Well, ahead of Veterans Day, you have a special report about America's heroes, including one report that the war isn't over for many vets. Tell us about that.
Yes, well, we have several articles about our veterans. You know, an interview with a priest who is a veteran, a deacon who is a veteran. We have a spread with pictures of D-Day in Normandy, you know, this year. But this special story you are referring to, we titled it, you know, the war is not over. And what does that mean? That, you know, a lot of our veterans are still dealing with the effects of the war. And we have an interview with one of them to describe, you know, how in their everyday life today, 50 years or 40 years after the war is not over.
Let's turn to elections. It's election season, and America's bishops are calling for politics and elections to be more civilized. Tell us about that.
Well, yes. You know, like Mark Twain used to say, everybody talks about the weather, but nobody does anything about it. Well, in this case, the bishops, you know, everybody talk about, you know, how uncivil our public discourses today, and you know how families cannot get to agree on anything, that when the conversation turns to politics, you know, is really bad, even at homes. So what the bishops are promoting is, you know, they establish a campaign to promote a more civil dialogue in our communities, in our politics, about the political problems of the day. I think it's a very important issue.
Anything that stands out in that article?
Well, in that article, what they say is they are going to do the work in the communities. In each parish, we are going to have working toward a civil dialogue in our parishes. I think that's the basic thing.
So this might be something that you hear your pastor talk about.
Of course, I think we are going to hear from our pastors, yes.
And are there any other articles that you think people want to hear about?
Yes, of course. The bishop's column is very interesting about the All Souls and how we have to live every day of our life like a little independent life. It's a very interesting perspective. You have to read it.
Can't wait. Thank you so much. Jorge Dominguez, editor-in-chief of The Tablet. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Tamara.
The Tablet needs your support to ensure that Catholic journalism will thrive well into the future. You can do so by purchasing the paper at your parish or subscribing to The Tablet so that it comes right to your mailbox. You'll save up to 55% by having it delivered to your home versus paying for it at church. Go to the website thetablet.org/home55 or call 877-883-8356. And please check out one of the latest features in the Tablet, the Our Diocesan Family page. That's where you can send in photos of your family receiving certain sacraments, such as baptism, first communion, confirmation, and marriage. For more information and to submit your pictures, go to thetablet.org/ourdiocesanfamily. Finally tonight, a California woman lost almost everything in the wildfires last week. Her home was destroyed. In the rubble, a firefighter discovered a precious jewel. It's the wedding ring of Patty Shale's late mother. It's the second time the band has emerged from a blaze unscathed. In 1961, her mother was wearing it when the same house caught fire. Patty believes her mom is watching over her from above.
She's in heaven and she's okay, and that I'm going to be okay.
The firefighter found the ring on the street underwater. The department is calling the discovery unbelievable. And it really is incredible.
Yes, and a sign of hope, too.
That is Currents News. I'm Tamara Lane. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.